Welcome back to the TEDMED at CDC. Jessica Spraggins has been a health communicator at CDC the past 11 years, first working in CDC's Office on Smoking and Health, and currently in CDC's Division of Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention. Her talk today is entitled, How to Ace Childhood, Making Adverse Childhood Experiences Part of My Story.
Thank you, John. I kind of feel like I'm in an AA meeting standing up here, or maybe a Toastmasters meeting. Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm either an alcoholic or I suck at public speaking. You guys are probably hoping I'm an alcoholic, otherwise the next 15 minutes are gonna be really terrible. But my name is Jessica, and I'm here because I have a fabulous, fashionable, annoyingly supportive friend who keeps trying to shove me out of my comfort bubble to tell my story. She's so insistent that I'm an inspiration and I deserve the best. But I love her, so I'm here to tell you my story of growing up in child abuse and surviving. Now, mine's not a Cinderella story because I'm still a work in progress, but I wanted to start by telling you who I thought I was 2 years ago. So I had a bachelor's degree from Mount Vernon College at the George Washington University. I had an MPH from Yale University. I was a senior communications specialist in the Division for Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention at the CDC. I was a wife to a handsome, charismatic man and a mother to 3 beautiful, smart, loving sons. I was a proud homeowner. We also owned our own restaurant since that was my charming husband's dream. I was a dedicated PTA board member at my son's school, and I also volunteered as a crew mom in the classroom because I can do all of the things, like superstar, right? I mean, I worked hard night and day so that I could be Superwoman because I didn't want anybody, including me, to see the real me. So I lived my resume instead. The not so shiny perfect truth was that I came from and defined myself from a darker place, a place that included abuse. Sexual, physical, verbal, emotional abuse. It's kind of like child abuse bingo. Childhood rape, poverty, neglect, instability. I had no self-esteem and no self-worth. I was in an abusive marriage with an alcoholic drug user. We were in debt. That restaurant that we had, we spent all of our money on it. I borrowed against my retirement account to open it. It was losing money and being used by my husband as a way to meet women. I was more than 100 pounds overweight from an addiction to food. I also had an addiction to motion. I was like Dory, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Basically anything to distract me from my life. We were proud homeowners, but that home was falling apart, like physically falling apart, but it was also torn apart by the turmoil inside of it. And I needed a root canal. I was still a mother to 3 beautiful, smart, loving sons. So some of that stuff, it's really hard, it's difficult stuff, it's really uncomfortable to talk about and to hear about. And I had to fight with myself when I was preparing this talk. Should I use softer words like say I was molested or just had a crappy childhood? But I promised myself that if I was gonna get up here and do this at all, that it had to be an authentic story. It had to be my authentic story of trauma and resilience. And the unvarnished truth is that I was raped at 6 years old, and nobody did anything about that. And my siblings and I, we were abused. And as a wacky paradox, we were also neglected. And it's really hard. And it changes who you are, not just at the time, but forever. And just like we, as a society, don't want to hear about hard, ugly things, I didn't want to live them. So I worked really hard to be better than I was. I worked hard to be perfect. I got my first job when I was 8 years old to help feed my younger siblings and pay the bills. And my older brother and I, we raised our younger siblings. We got them up in the morning and we fed them the food that we had prepared. We got them into the clothes that we had washed and got them out the door to school, where we watched over them to make sure that they weren't picked on too badly for not having the right kind of clothes or shoes or whatever. Stuff that we couldn't afford, because if you can't afford food, you can't afford Reeboks. But we were our own village and we stuck together. We survived together until we were each old enough to move out of the house on our own. We fast forwarded that as much as possible, and all of us were out of the house by the time we were 17. And even though our village sort of spread out from our parents' house, we had each other's backs, and we still do. When I left, I moved to Washington, D.C., which was the furthest away that I could get while staying in the continental United States. And in D.C., I could be anybody I wanted to be. It was like my own version of the witness protection program. I didn't have to be that poor redneck kid that got her clothes from the trash bin outside the family bargain center. Nobody in my new life knew that my parents were first cousins or that my dad ate a duck that he hit with his pickup truck because that damn duck cost me $160 for a new windshield. Of course I was gonna eat them. So I started my new perfect life. I got an education, I became a wife, I became a mother, I became a professional. I told the right stories and I did the right things and I gave of myself, and I did it while smiling and holding my babies in their ergonomically correct Maya wraps. But then it got to a point in my life where it was really hard to keep smiling, and it was really hard to keep getting up every day and doing the right thing. It got to a point where I really understood Meryl Streep and Kramer versus Kramer. It looked good, genius even. So I realized that when running away from my sweet children got to be an option in my own head, that I needed to figure this out, and I needed to deal with my fractured self. And this is the part where my public health nerd comes in. So I had read about the work that CDC has done on the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, the ACEs study, and I became my own case study. So CDC, in collaboration with Kaiser Permanente, ran one of the largest investigations ever conducted that looked at the association between childhood adversity and health outcomes later in life. The original ACEs study ran in the late 90s, and it asked over 17,000 people about 10 categories of adverse childhood experiences. So it's physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, physical or emotional neglect, divorce of a parent, domestic violence against a parent, or then living with a household member who is a substance abuser, who is mentally ill or suicidal or had been imprisoned. And what they found was me. Not like me, but like a lot of me's. So the ACE study findings suggested that certain childhood experiences are major risk factors for the leading causes of illness and death, as well as the poorer quality of life. They even have a questionnaire that you can take that grades you 0 to 10 on how messed up your childhood was. And I took it, and I got a 9 because I'm a really high achiever. But I was also statistically at risk for a lot of the crap that I was already living through. And I was at greater risk for even more, including some of the stuff that I was working in my professional life to try to prevent, like heart disease and stroke and a host of other chronic diseases. So, embracing my 9 ACEs, I set out to do some research, as public health nerds do. And being a web person in my professional life, I turned to the best resource ever, Google. And in the state that I was in, which was really close to rock bottom, again, very close to Meryl Streep and Kramer versus Kramer, I Googled how to not die. And surprisingly, there's not a lot of helpful stuff there. I was like, damn the CDC. Why do we not have a webpage on this? For the CDC, this is what we do. We help people to not die, but we're very specific about it. We help people to not die of heart disease. We help people to not die of cancer, of Ebola, TB, injury. We got all that. And even in my desperation and despair, I had to admit that we're pretty damn good at what we do. But why do we not have a division and a webpage on how to not die from life itself? I can't be the only one who needs that, right? But being the consummate communications professional and problem solver that I am, I thought about SEO, search engine optimization. I must just not be searching by the right keywords. So what kind of tagging would apply to what I'm looking for? Where's the usability expert that's gonna help tag the dysfunction in my mind? So we're gonna try how to stay alive. In chronic disease prevention, we try to tell people the what to do's, not the what not to do's. So we're gonna put a positive spin on it. We're gonna make it goal-oriented. How to stay alive, search. BGs, not helpful. How to stay alive in the woods, no. How to stay on the island, not really. So nothing on how just to stay alive. So Google was not very helpful, which meant that I needed to do some actual research into how to not die. And I found books, lots and lots of books. 10 Things to Do When Your Life Falls Apart, Carry On Warrior, and Anything and Everything by Brene Brown. I read a lot. And what I realized from all this research was that I wasn't gonna die, but I couldn't live 2 lives. There's a reason why Two-Face from Batman was a villain, because this stuff, it makes you really grouchy. So it was time for me to step out of the witness protection program, and I had to make the 2 pieces of my story into one, because to truly be me, I had to own all of it. And it was really hard, and a lot of it sucked, and I didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to keep living the way that I had been either, because it was harder, and it was a disservice to me and to my children. So I buckled down and I did the work. My 7-year-old son, when he was little, his favorite book was called Be Happy, and it was a play on the Beatitudes of Jesus. And I'm not Christian. I read a saying in a great book one time. I mean, it was Facebook, but it's the same thing. The saying is, religion is for people who are afraid of going to hell. Spirituality is for people who have already been there. So that's my religious outlook. But anyway, my little sweetness, he loved this book. And the book said, be happy when you wake up, be happy when you snooze, be happy when you win, be happy when you lose. For happiness in all you do, just be happy to be you. Only he always shouted, be happy to be me, because he's awesome. So I came up with my own B's for my life. This is my code, and this is what's important to me as I live my life and I raise my children. The first is to be kind. When my now 15-year-old son was little, he was so type A. I have no idea where he got that from. But a large part of my parenting of him was reminding him that you have to take the time to be kind. And he chanted this mantra back at me when I was being a grouchy mom. It's so important to be kind. And I say that to all my kids now, and they say it back to me too. Now, Gandhi was quoted as saying, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I think this is true for kindness too. Be the kindness that you wish to see in the world. Because how can we go wrong if we're all putting more kindness out into the universe? And remembering to be kind to yourself is so very important. The next is to be real. And holy crap, was this one hard for me. There's a lot of what I just talked about today that I hadn't shared with my now ex-husband. And a lot of it that I hadn't shared with my people, my crew, my tribe. When I try to embarrass my teenager, I call them my posse, just to show them what a nerdy white lady I am. It's fairly cheap entertainment. But I tried really hard to hide my broken, ugly bits from my people because I was afraid that they would hate me or judge me or just stop loving me. But when I was ready to be real, I pulled together my people and I was real with them. And they loved me and they supported me just like I needed them to. And my older brother, he said, shoot, Jess, that's fudged up. Only he's a cop and a Marine, so it's much more colorful language than that, but I can't say that here. But that was his version of loving me. My younger brother offered to off someone for me. I can't say who, to help him avoid prosecution, but that was him loving me. My sister, who's my best friend and my lifeline, she brought me chips and queso. Bless her. But they loved me, and they didn't love me any less for being real. They loved me just as much as they always had, in their real and amazing ways. The next was to be brave. And can I just say that brave really doesn't feel like brave when you're in it. It feels like terror and uncertainty. It feels a lot like nausea and insomnia and hard choices all wrapped into one. You kind of feel like you're the craziest person on the planet for doing other than the status quo. But I knew that in order to do the right thing, I had to be brave in ways that I never thought I'd be able to be. And I think we all know what the right thing is in our own lives. We just need the courage in ourselves, the belief in what's right, and the support of our tribe to do the right and brave thing. It's worth it. The next is to be you. And this sounds simple, but it's so hard. But my dad has a t-shirt that he wears that says Yale Dad, and he wears it with pride because he raised someone who went to Yale. But he wouldn't show you a picture of me because I'm overweight. So we can be proud of the person who graduated from Yale, but not the one who has weight issues, when they're one and the same. But that's where I was too. I could be proud of this part, but not this part, when the truth is that it's all me. And I've gotten really good at being me in the last 2 years. The best part about being me is being a mom. I put everything that I have into being a mother to my boys, but I had to be a mother to myself as well as part of this process. And being a mother who's also an abuse survivor, I know that even if a child doesn't appear to be abused, they may very well be. And even once a child is removed from that abusive environment, that trauma is still a part of them and their story, and it will need to be addressed at some point and in some deep way. And I truly think that by being a mother to me and treating me the way that I treat my children, I learned to love all of me, even the broken parts. And like Dr. Seuss says, today you are you, that is truer than true. There's no one alive who is youer than you. And my last one is just to be. Some days, the only thing that I could do was be, but I did it. And there were a few years where basic survival was a goal. Thankfully, it was met. But if that's all you got, then you take it, friends. My 3-year-old gives himself motivational speeches that are simply, I can do this. And we can too. And now that I've gotten my other Bs, this one has become more than just basic survival. It's become more of an existential being. So that's what I'm working on right now. We'll see how that goes. Pretty sure it'll look something like this. So today, I'm a Yale, MVC, GW graduate. I'm a senior communications specialist at the CDC. I'm owner of a home with a rickety front steps and a ball pit instead of living room furniture. I'm a PTA board member. I'm a room mom. I am an abuse survivor. I'm in debt. Thank you, student loans, for getting me through university. I don't think I can ever repay you. I still need that root canal, but I'm still the mother to 3 beautiful, smart, loving sons. And like us all, I'm a work in progress. I don't have all the answers. I thought that I would find my answers by using myself as an ACEs case study. And what I found is that we all just get by the best way that we know how. We survive the way we know how, and we just hope that we're better people on the other side. I do agree with Dr. Robert Block, who's the former president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, who said that children's exposure to adverse childhood experiences is the greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation. So I'm here to ask, what can we as public health professionals do to prevent more stories like mine? We have the research, we have the need, all we need is the action. Thank you.
First, thank you for the aspirin. That's a private joke, sorry. The second, how do you use your experiences to encourage others? How do you spot them, and then how do you help bring them along?
I think that everybody has their own story to tell, and I think that we're really good at sort of hiding who we might really be because we're so busy switching out what hats we're wearing on any given day. So I think when I got to a point where I was really authentic with people, then they reciprocated and they were authentic as well. And I think that people are just sort of waiting to tell their stories and have somebody accept them for who they are. And they're not going to do that if they think that they're going to be judged. So just being open to people and sharing your story and accepting them for who they are, I think is how we get those kind of relationships that we would need.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.